I'm going to be speaking on Zoom or via Zoom with Mandla Isaacs. He's an economist. Thank you very much, Mandla, for joining us. Just give us your overall interpretation of the budget. Do you think that it was a fairly good budget, especially given that taxes were not raised, particularly income tax?
Thank you. I think it was a good budget. It's been in continuation with the broad trend that Treasury has been doing over the last few years, which is to say we need to get spending under control and focus on reforms which can grow the economy. Taxes were not raised. I was not expecting them to be raised. We've basically reached the limits of how much that you can tax individuals through personal income tax and corporate tax, and of course VAT. Treasury is very reluctant to raise that. There's very little that you can do at that point without damaging the economy and of course creating huge political blowback from citizens and the electorate.
So, Mandla, just in terms of the infrastructure spend that government is going to apply, talking about 17 billion rand over the medium term, obviously they would want to party with the private sector, maybe to multiply that sum. Just tell us your thoughts around that. Is that encouraging?
It is. We know that infrastructure is a huge focus area for the president. Infrastructure is quite critical. We've had backlogs in telecommunications, digital infrastructure. We know that, rail infrastructure is critical to our exports. It raises the cost of our manufactured goods. It's created constraints even on our commodities. Even in the midst of this boom, we've been constrained in terms of the amount of coal that we're able to get down that Richards Bay corridor and out of that port because of limitations on the rail infrastructure. So there's huge scope there. The government has made clear that it does not have the funds to kind of be the lead investor in infrastructure. So what it's trying to do is package projects in the right way, focus on streamlining those approval processes to get infrastructure out the door. You saw a renewed focus on PPPs to smooth the way in which government's able to negotiate, finalize, and increase the speed and rate at which PPPs are agreed so that you can maximize that private sector investment. The government's essentially trying to play an enabling role, put in money in very targeting ways that can unlock more private sector money and simply reform and unlock the process so that you make it much easier to conclude infrastructure projects and get that investment out the door. We know there's a lot of interest in renewable energy, in IPPs, which can happen if government enables that correctly. There's interest in the transport infrastructure. And of course, the telecommunications infrastructure, and we're all waiting for that auction of spectrum, which has been waiting for years, which will immediately unlock 20 or 30 billion rand of investment in new telecoms infrastructure. So that's a huge opportunity for the country.
Yeah. Mandla, you do seem to be speaking in quite positive tones. Just tell us, lastly, is this budget a ratings positive budget?
I think it will be. I think the ratings agencies will see it as positive. The big issue, the big question was, what is government going to do with that 180-odd billion rand windfall in commodity revenue? And I think government made a good decision to use some of it to fund the COVID grant extension by a year, some of it to fund provincial education and health, to make due on the impact for the public wage cash component that hit those provincial budgets quite hard. But then the bulk of that was used to manage debt and bring forward that primary budget surplus into a year earlier, and I think 2023. So I think the ratings agencies will look on that positively and say that the government did hold the line and is committing to stabilizing the debt trajectory. But of course, they will be keeping an eye on those risks around SOEs, the public sector wage bill, as well as the political risks around further calls for a basic income grant. But I think it's slightly positive for now from a ratings and credibility perspective.
Okay, thank you very much, Mandla, for your time and insights there.